Hi, I'm Winter, and I just found out that my father handed our family construction business to my younger brother Marcus, while simultaneously informing me that I'm responsible for paying off his student loans. The loans he took for the business degree that apparently qualified him to run our third-generation company. I sat across from my best friend, Elena, in our favorite coffee shop, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. The smell of espresso usually calmed me, but today it did nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. He did what? Elena's eyes widened, her coffee mug suspended halfway to her lips. That can't be legal, can it? Your dad can't just assign someone else's debt to you. He's not... technically. The loans are in my name, I admitted, staring into my untouched latte. Dad convinced me to take them out 4 years ago. Said it was the only way we could afford to send Marcus to business school since the company was struggling. But the understanding was that the company would pay them back? Elena pressed. Exactly. Dad promised the business would handle the loans once Marcus graduated and took over operations. I pushed my hair back from my face. What he failed to mention was that the business apparently meant me personally, not Davidson Construction. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Meeting with the bank tomorrow. Dad says you need to be there to discuss loan restructuring. 2 p.m. Elena watched my expression darken. What is it? Marcus, being his usual considerate self. I turned my phone screen toward her. No, please. No question if I'm available. Just a command. What are you going to do? Elena asked gently. I don't know yet, but I'm done letting them make decisions about my life without my input. I finally took a sip of my coffee. Dad always said I was too emotional to run the business, that Marcus had the head for it. Maybe it's time I showed them exactly what this emotional woman can do. Whatever you decide, I'm here, Elena said, reaching across to squeeze my hand. And for what it's worth, you're the most level-headed person I know. Your father's wrong about you. The bell above the cafe door jingled, and I looked up to see my cousin Tara walking in. I waved her over, grateful for the reinforcement. Sorry I'm late, Tara said, sliding into the booth beside Elena. What did I miss? You sounded upset on the phone. Uncle Frank has outdone himself this time, Elena explained before I could speak. Dad gave Marcus the company and stuck me with his loans. I summarized. $60,000 worth. Tara's jaw dropped. He can't be serious. You've been working there since high school. You know more about construction than Marcus ever will. Apparently, business degrees trump actual experience, I said dryly. Marcus took a few accounting classes, and suddenly he's qualified to run a company he's barely set foot in. This is about the Patterson contract, isn't it? Tara asked, her eyes narrowing. You landed that huge project, and suddenly Uncle Frank decides Marcus should be in charge to oversee it. I wouldn't be surprised, I admitted. The Patterson project is the biggest contract we've had in years. Dad always did have convenient timing. So what's your next move? Tara asked. I took a deep breath. First, I'm going to that bank meeting tomorrow. Not to discuss restructuring my loans, but to understand exactly what's happening with the company finances. Then I'm going to have a long overdue conversation with my father. The bank meeting was worse than I'd expected. I sat stiffly beside Marcus in Mr. Tompkins's office, the family's longtime banker, as he explained the new arrangement. So as you can see, Miss Davidson, with the business transfer to your brother, the company will be focusing its resources on expansion rather than debt repayment, Mr. Tompkins explained, sliding papers across his polished desk. Your father has indicated that you'll be taking full responsibility for the outstanding education loans. I don't recall agreeing to that arrangement, I said evenly, leaving the papers untouched. Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside me. Come on, Win. We discussed this. The business needs capital for the Patterson project. No, Marcus. Dad might have discussed it with you, but no one bothered to consult me. I turned to Mr. Tompkins. I'd like to see the company's financial statements for the past 3 years, please. Mr. Tompkins glanced nervously at Marcus. I'm afraid those would need to come from the company directly, now that your brother is CEO. Actually, I countered, As someone who's personally guaranteed business loans for Davidson Construction, I have every right to see those records. The banker's eyebrows shot up. You've personally guaranteed business loans? Yes, she has, Marcus interjected quickly. But that was under the previous arrangement. Dad's working on transferring those guarantees. I smiled tightly. Until that happens, I believe my request stands. Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice. Winter, you're making a scene. This isn't the place. I'm making a reasonable business request, I replied, loud enough for Mr. Tompkins to hear. And if Dad wanted to transfer loan guarantees, he should have consulted me first, since my financial future is at stake. Mr. Tompkins cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps we should reschedule after you've had a family discussion. No need, I said firmly. I'll wait while you gather those financial records, or I can call the State Banking Commission to inquire about my rights as a loan guarantor. Your choice. An hour later, I left the bank with copies of financial statements that told a very different story than what my father had presented. I called Diane, my former business professor from community college. Diane, it's Winter Davidson. I need your expertise on something. Can we meet today? That evening, I sat in Diane's home office while she reviewed the documents, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Well, this is interesting, she said finally, looking up at me. Your family's construction company is actually in excellent financial shape. These profit margins are impressive, especially in this economy. So there's no financial crisis requiring my brother to divert funds from loan repayment to business expansion? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Quite the opposite, Diane confirmed, pointing to a particular line item. They've maintained a healthy cash reserve, more than enough to cover both expansion and your loan repayment. She studied me carefully. Winter, what exactly is going on? I explained the situation, watching Diane's expression shift from concern to indignation. That's not just unfair. It's potentially fraudulent, she said firmly. If you took out those loans with the documented understanding that the company would repay them as a business expense, your father can't simply change those terms without your consent. The agreement was verbal, I admitted. Dad's always operated on handshakes. Even so, you've been working for the company how long? Since I was 16, full-time for the last 8 years after I got my contractor's license. Diane tapped her pen thoughtfully. Winter, have you ever considered starting your own company? The question caught me off guard. Honestly, not until this week. Davidson Construction has been my whole life. Well, perhaps it's time to reconsider, Diane suggested. You clearly have the experience, and from what you've told me about landing the Patterson contract, you have the client relationship skills too. I wouldn't even know where to begin, I said. Diane smiled. That's where I come in. Let me introduce you to someone. The following afternoon, I found myself sitting across from Gina Mendez, a successful contractor who had started her own company 5 years earlier. So that's the situation, I finished explaining. I'm essentially being pushed out of my family business while being saddled with my brother's debt. Gina shook her head, her practical bob swinging. Unfortunately, I've heard similar stories before. Construction is still very much an old boys' club in many ways. Did you face similar challenges? I asked. Different, but not easier, Gina replied. No family business to start from, so I built everything from scratch. But plenty of people assumed I was someone's secretary rather than the boss. She leaned forward. Winter, before we go further, have you confronted your father directly? Not yet, I admitted. I wanted all the facts first. Smart, she nodded approvingly. So what exactly do you want? To fight for control of the family business? Or to break away entirely? The question gave me pause. I'm not sure yet. Part of me wants to prove I could run Davidson Construction better than Marcus ever could. But another part wants a fresh start without the family baggage? Gina finished for me. Exactly. Well, I can help with either path, Gina said. But first, you need to have that conversation with your father. Clear the air, understand his reasoning, if there is any beyond old-fashioned sexism, and then make your decision from a position of strength. She handed me her business card, then added another one. And this is my lawyer, Samir Patel. He specializes in business disputes, including family ones. Call him if you need legal backup. First consultation is free. I nodded, gathering my courage. You're right. It's time. That evening, I drove to my parents' house, the same one I'd grown up in. Dad was in his usual spot in the living room, watching baseball. Winter, he said, surprised when I walked in. Didn't know you were coming by. We need to talk, Dad, I said, turning off the television despite his protest. This about the bank meeting? He asked, his expression guarded. Marcus said you were being difficult. Is that what you call standing up for myself these days? Being difficult? I pulled the financial statements from my bag and laid them on the coffee table. Why did you lie about the company's financial situation? Dad's eyes flickered to the papers, then back to my face. I didn't lie. Business is complicated. Don't patronize me, I interrupted, my voice shaking slightly despite my efforts to remain calm. I've been working in this business my entire adult life. These statements show the company has more than enough money to cover both expansion and Marcus's loans. The business needed a fresh direction, Dad insisted, his face reddening. Marcus has the education, and I have 8 years of hands-on experience, I countered, my heart pounding in my chest. I brought in the Patterson contract, not Marcus. I've managed our crews, built relationships with suppliers, and solved problems on site while Marcus was in college. So I'll ask again, why give him the company and burden me with his debt? Dad's face flushed. You're too emotional, Winter. Too impulsive. Construction requires a steady hand. I felt a familiar ache of disappointment, one I'd carried since childhood whenever I'd failed to meet his impossible standards. But this time, instead of accepting his judgment, I challenged it. Is that really what you think of me? Or is it simpler than that? You just always wanted a son to take over the family business? The silence that followed was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Well, I won't fight you on giving Marcus the company, but I won't be paying off his loans either. Dad's eyes widened. You can't just walk away from your obligations. They were never my obligations, Dad. They were the company's. And if Marcus is now the company, then they're his problem. I stood up, suddenly feeling lighter than I had in years. Consider this my 2 weeks' notice. As I walked toward the door, Dad called after me. Winter, don't do something you'll regret. Family businesses are complicated. I turned back one last time. You're right, Dad. They are complicated, especially when family members aren't treated equally. But my decision isn't complicated at all. 3 months later, I stood in the small office space I'd leased, freshly painted in blues and grays. The sign on the door read, Winter Builds LLC, a name Elena had suggested, saying it conveyed both my personal brand and what the company did. Tara walked in carrying a box of office supplies. Looking good in here, boss lady. I smiled, still getting used to the title. Thanks for all your help. I couldn't have done this so quickly without you. Are you kidding? After 15 years working in corporate marketing, helping my cousin launch her own construction company is the most exciting project I've had in ages. She set the box down on my new desk. Have you heard anything from Uncle Frank or Marcus? Dad called last week, I admitted. Said they're having some challenges with the Patterson project and asked if I'd consider consulting. For a fee, I hope, Tara said with raised eyebrows. A very substantial one, I confirmed with a smile. But I referred them to Gina instead. She's got more experience with that type of commercial build anyway. The door opened again, and Diane walked in with Elena, both carrying gift bags. Office warming presents? Elena announced, placing hers on my desk with a flourish. You shouldn't have, I protested, though I was touched by their thoughtfulness. Of course we should, Diane insisted. It's not every day one of my former students launches her own successful business. Successful might be premature, I cautioned. We haven't even finished our first project yet. 3 signed contracts in your first quarter? Elena countered. I'd call that a strong start. And Patterson Construction calling to offer you their next project directly rather than going through Davidson? Tara added. That's more than just a good start. I still can't believe they reached out, I admitted. I thought they'd stay with the family business out of loyalty. They're loyal to quality work and relationships, Diane pointed out, both of which you provided. The Patterson family is just being smart with their investment. A knock at the door interrupted our conversation. Mike, my newly hired foreman, poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt, boss, but the crew's ready for that site walkthrough whenever you are, he said. Thanks, Mike. Tell them I'll be right there, I replied. After he left, Elena raised an eyebrow. So that's the former Davidson construction foreman who quit to join your company? I nodded. Along with 2 of our best project managers and several crew members. Turns out I wasn't the only one who felt undervalued. How's it feel being on the other side of the hiring desk? Diane asked. Empowering, I admitted. Being able to build a team based on skill and work ethic rather than family ties or old loyalties. It's refreshing. My phone rang, and I glanced at the screen, Marcus calling again. I silenced it and put the phone away. Still not ready to talk to him? Elena asked gently. Not yet, I sighed. Maybe someday, but right now I need to focus on building my own path, not cleaning up his messes. Fair enough, Diane nodded. Setting boundaries is important. Speaking of building, Tara interjected, changing the subject. The website goes live tomorrow. Want a preview? As Tara pulled up the site on her tablet, I felt a surge of pride seeing my company coming to life. The homepage featured a photo of me in a hard hat at our first work site, surrounded by a diverse crew I'd hand-selected. It's perfect, I said, my voice thick with emotion. So, Miss Business Owner? Elena asked. Any regrets about taking this leap? I thought about the fear I'd felt that day in the coffee shop, the uncertainty that had nearly paralyzed me. I thought about my father's dismissal and my brother's entitlement. Then I looked around at the office with my name on the door, at the friends who had supported me every step of the way, and at the contracts waiting on my desk. Not one, I answered honestly. This isn't the path I expected, but it's the one I needed. And I'm just getting started.